Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Mr. Amsterdam, thank you for your time and thank you for taking our questions. First of all, what is the exact information that you have? Who gave you this information and where does it come from?
Two separate intelligence services gave us the information. Our position is, quite simple, that we, because we represent an innocent individual wrongly convicted in a bogus show trial, in a country where the judiciary itself is subject to sanctions for corruption, in a country where violence is a daily event against those who wish to engage in democratic dissent. Getting this information, I felt we had no choice but to make it public. Quite honestly, I can't provide the names, and I won't provide the names because this information is being given confidentially. I can tell you that I've practiced law for 45 years in some of the most difficult countries in the world, and I've never issued a press release like this. So you can take it from me that we treat this with a tremendous level of seriousness.
What type of prevention is this to make it public, Mr. Amsterdam?
We have top-level security advisors who told us that making this public would actually provide some safety to our client and friend, Mr. Bachiashvili, and that's why we're doing it.
How is that possible? I mean, who can help Bachiashvili right now, and do you have any means to defend him somehow?
Yes, fortunately, there are means to defend him, but given the present situation, we're not going to describe any. What we're trying to do now is not something that we can make public. What we can make public are the threats against his life, which we have. And obviously, if you go on the internet, you can see that the government of Georgia has been very busy engaging in a defamation campaign against him because they are rightfully embarrassed by their shameful conduct toward this young man. And, in fact, Georgia is covered in shame and covered in a catastrophic situation where its young people have nowhere to look for hope, given the stolen election and the behavior of the Georgian Dream Party.
Who will be responsible if anything happens?
We will provide that information as time goes on and the information becomes more clear. Certainly our initial engagement is pointing fingers at people involved with the Georgian government. But I'm not going to say anything till all of this is confirmed.
Did you receive any feedback from Georgia, Mr. Amsterdam? Did anyone call you from the official bodies?
No, surprisingly, no one has called. And I say surprisingly because it should be a matter of concern that this is a death threat against a Georgian citizen, but we haven't heard anything, which again leads to some suspicion.
But do you think the call will follow? Are you ready for that?
I'm happy to receive a call. I've always been of the view that there have to be some fair-minded people left. But after what I actually witnessed, even during one of my days in court, I tend to think I was over-optimistic. I think the Georgian Dream has completely captured the country, and the leader of the Georgian Dream has, in fact, captured the party. So there seems to be, at this moment, very little hope.
What should be going in Georgia after this statement, after your statement, Mr. Amsterdam? Do you think there should be starting some investigation? What should be inside the country at this point?
I would think there should be an investigation. I would think, that would be in order. The problem is, given the nature of the threat, we would be very cautious in terms of what collaboration we could provide. So it would have to be an internal investigation inside Georgia. And as we said in our statement, this is information we've received. This is not the kind of information where you have 100% certainty, which is why I have not laid responsibility at any individual's feet at this point. We're simply saying that this is a very credible threat that exists, and our security people have advised us to make it public.
Also, why now? I mean, what has changed since Bachiashvili's case? What is your analysis in this?
Look, why now? We just found out, so we decided to immediately release the information. Why the government would engage in this contact ever is beyond my understanding, or why anyone, government or not, would engage in this conduct is beyond me. It would only put the government of Georgia into disrepute. So the motivation is difficult to understand. And, one of the options on the table is that this conspiracy could even be one where some other power could be involved. But again, I'm not going to speculate until we get more information.
What do you mean by some other power?
Georgia is at the fulcrum of geopolitical tensions. So there's.
So do you mean Russia might be involved in this? I mean, what is your other power?
I am saying to you that we can't point a decisive finger at exactly who is behind it, but we are conducting our own investigation, obviously, as well.
But do you know what type of information can these forces or powers be after? I mean, and what type of information does Bachiashvili have at this point?
Look, I am, again, not going to speculate as about whether it's concerning his information or his position.
But do you have contact with Bachiashvili at this point? Do you know where he's hiding? You know everything about him?
Of course I have information.
What implications this information might have?
Well, obviously, tremendous implications. But let's be very clear. There was no trial of Mr. Bachiashvili. There was a show. The judges were not judging. The prosecutor was not prosecuting. It was exactly like cases I've seen in Russia, where you're basically seeing a pantomime. There was no justice. There was just acting, and the new charges stem from the same thing. In respect to the charges, it's very clear they have the signature of Mr. Kvanchilashvili. He is obviously an individual who is both paranoid and driven to unlimited means in terms of attacking opponents, as I witnessed in court and as we've seen from this ridiculous judgment. The evidence is very clear that he controls the judiciary. The evidence is very clear he controls the prosecution. And what that tells you about the threats that I've outlined, I leave to others. And again, I say to you, we will continue to work with local counsel on his defense to the extent we're allowed. And we will continue to operate internationally, seek to sanction those who engaged in this conduct in Georgia.
But do you think you might be summoned to Georgia for some kind of investigation, and what will be your position on that? I mean, how does that work?
Well, to be honest with you, I would not anticipate that I would respect any summons or subpoena that would come out of the Georgian prosecutors, because again, I shouldn't call them prosecutors, and I don't want to call it a court. This follows this theory I talk about, the presumption of regularity. These people are not prosecutors. This isn't a court. They are actors. They're not Tom Cruise, but they're actors, and they're all playing a role in a phony, bogus attempt to look like a real government. But Georgia doesn't have a real government. Georgia has a one-man sultanate going on right now. And all of this other stuff that you see in Georgia is fabrication. There is no justice. There is no government that isn't directly under the control of Ivanishvili.
So what is your strategy at this point on Bachiashvili's case, Mr. Amsterdam? I mean, what are you doing now? What you're working on?
Our strategy is to continue to delegitimize the bogus conviction and charges, and to work with governments that are actual governments to see if we can obtain some form of justice against these actors who have perpetrated these phony charges and phony convictions.
So are you engaging with like Georgian judiciary as well, or is your work outside Georgia?
We are working outside Georgia, but we will of course continue to collaborate with local counsel.
Mm-hmm. And also my last question, thank you for your time. Do you think there will be, I mean, what the audience got from our conversations? Are you leaving more questions than answers at this point? And what is the reason for that?
Well, look, to be very frank with you, we know a lot already. We know that Georgia has engaged in this ridiculous persecution of Bachiashvili. We know that they staged a bogus trial. We know that they engineered further charges at the behest of Mr. Ivanishvili. So, to be honest, those are facts. The information that I've had from these agencies, these intelligence agencies, this is what they are telling us. Our security people have suggested that we come out and make the statement public. And
can you name the countries and the intelligence?
No. I'm not going to name the countries. I'm not. We are very much in their debt for providing this information. So we are not going to jeopardize obtaining further information by revealing sources.
So at this point, our viewers either trust you and the work that you've done, or not, because no more arguments or statements can be provided because of the security reasons.
Look, our situation is very simple. We are doing this not to try to convince anyone that we're right. We are doing this with only one goal, which is to protect the life of a brilliant member of Georgian society. That's what has guided us, and we're not out to convince anyone. The phony show trial convinced everyone. The repression and the blood in the streets convinces everyone. The behavior, the illogical behavior of Ivanishvili and his speeches in April, I don't need to convince the Georgian people of the paranoid nature of their leadership and the corrupt immorality of what's happening on the streets of Tbilisi. I don't need to convince anyone. It's there for all to see.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.